So this is part two of our truly madly Derby Voice of Derbyshire, Ed Dawes, who is the BBC Radio Derby County commentator, of course. So definitely up there with those Voices of Derbyshire, as we've established already. And if you missed it, of course, you can go back to the last episode to hear all about why he is an honorary Derbyshire bloke. We're talking about the fact that you achieved the job you knew at the age of 8 you wanted to do. And not only that, the job you end up doing, never escapes you the fact of how privileged you are to basically be paid to not only watch football, which of course you love, because you love watching all football teams. You're not only watching football, you're watching your football team.
Yeah.
So I guess that comes with a bit of a balance that you've really got to consciously strike. And I know there are, but there will be certainly moments where you've kind of crossed the line of, I'm being a professional commentator and I'm going to remain completely neutral, and oh my God, they've been promoted. I could be a commentator with that voice, do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, you've cried on air, let's be honest. Let's start there.
Yeah. Well, that whole experience, the administration thing, I ate it, I slept it, I lived it, because I was consistently trying to get the information, the up-to-date information, and I felt like I was having to battle other journalists for the truth. My source was nailed on. You can't get any more nailed on than my source. So I was confident in everything that I put out on Radio Derby, and I stand by it.
You got a lot of stick for it, didn't you?
Oh, loads. Yeah, because people don't want the bad news. They want sugarcoating. Chris Kirchner was going to be the saviour. He turned up at Pride Park. He'd, written a letter to fans and all that kind of stuff.
Had you were bought into it as well, didn't you? For a time, you thought, "Wow, this is."
Well, I wouldn't say I bought into it. I said I would have
felt hopeful.
Felt hopeful because the story was moving on. Because every day that went by, the club was getting closer to obliteration. But the investigation into Chris Kirchner that I did, talking to people here, talking to people in America, it was pretty clear that he didn't have the funds to finish the deal, and that the funds didn't ever leave American shores. So therefore, I went on air and said I expect the deal to collapse within the next 24 to 48 hours. And that went down like a lead balloon. And actually, it took 7 days. And in those 7 days, people who were on edge, emotional about it, let me know how they felt. Yeah, that's fine. We put our heads above a parapet and get it shot off occasionally. And it's part of the job, because you've got a public persona, public profile. And if people don't have to agree with you, my only bugbear has always been, if it gets personal, that's not right. We're only doing a job at the end of the day, to the best of our knowledge.
And it has been personal.
Yeah.
Because you do get this is one of the downsides of social media, isn't it?
Yeah.
That people are keyboard warriors. If they saw you face to face, they wouldn't ever come out with the stuff that they think it's okay to type.
Well, actually, one lad did. He was at Blackpool. We were at Blackpool under Wayne Rooney, final away game of the season. And he got right up in my face and threatened me. I felt really on edge. It was a half time. I'd just gone to the loo because the fans were around us, and he was right in my face, which I thought was just questions, what am I doing this for? When people are going to be like that. But yeah, I mean, everybody gets stick, everybody gets abuse. You just have to swallow it, I guess, because there's literally nothing that can be done about social media, nothing at all. You know, you have to question what's true on social media now, let alone police it for abuse. So, I mean, what can you do? You just literally can't do anything. And there'll be people watching this who have probably done it to other people and probably will do it to this interview. But you just got to be true to yourself, confident, and try not let it affect you. It's very difficult because for all the positive, really loved your commentary, great interview, all of those messages, for every single one, you could have 10, 15, 20. It's the one negative, abusive message that cuts deep. That's the society we live in, sadly.
There's a balance. We talked about striking that balance about, trying to be professional and neutral as a commentator when you're commentating on your team. But there's also that balance, I guess, in your job. You've got to make those connections. Your career started off because you were clearly good at making those connections, of introducing yourself to people, even if they thought you were this precocious 8-year-old, of then eventually getting back in touch with that same person who then opened the door for you.
Yeah.
It's all about connections, isn't it? And a lot of people in various industries would agree with that. But particularly with you, you've got to strike that relationship with the club that you're commentating on, that you're working with, because you want to make sure you get those first interviews, in the good times, but also in the bad times. And if you don't develop that relationship, that trust, then it's not there. I guess there have been moments as well where that balance has either been a tricky one for you to navigate because you don't want to cross a line into, you want them to trust you, but you're not mates. But also from, again, those keyboard warriors suggesting, well, you're in each other's pockets.
Yeah. I mean, the Mel Morris relationship was it was good. It was absolutely fine, and we had a professional relationship. I've never been to his house. I've never never had a coffee with him, but it was sometimes he'd call me and ask my opinion on something relating to media, and I knew that I could send him a text and say, I've heard this. Is this true? What about that? And he'd reply or not reply. I have those relationships with people high up now in sport. And yeah, I mean, Mel put the club into administration, and it was a massive shock. Nobody had a clue that was coming. So, of course, having got that relationship with him, I managed to secure the only interview he did. And we did it on a Sunday morning, on Zoom, and he didn't want to do it. He said, you can't record it. And I said, come on, Mel, you've got to say something. The fans want to know what's gone wrong, why you've done this. He didn't want to do it. So because I had that relationship with him, he trusted me. Eventually I talked him around and we did it. And I think we did it on the Sunday morning. I think it was an hour and a half, maybe. And then within a couple of hours, it was on Radio Derby. And there you go. And
in those situations, just from a behind the scenes perspective that listeners and viewers might not understand, are you then, you do the interview, is there then this conversation had where the example with Mel, he says, actually, I don't want that going out, and I don't want this going out. And does he have a right to say?
He said, I don't want to talk about this, and I don't want to talk about that. There were things that he didn't want to talk about. So, it's not like Paxman on Newsnight where I'm going to ask you the question anyway, and you can dodge it because it's Zoom, and therefore he could just end the call, and you'll never get that chance again. So, the criticism I got for that interview was that I didn't drag him over the coals and beat him up. However, the circumstances were that I had a specific list of things he didn't want to talk about, and he didn't want to do the interview in the first place. He was due on TalkSport on the Monday, and didn't do it.
As a result of doing the interview with you, he decided not to do any more.
He just didn't do it. I don't know why. Just didn't. So there you go. But yeah.
And in that moment, then that he could at any point just cut it off, and that's the end of it. So you're under the pressure of knowing, because you're being a voice of the fans, and what you're a fan, so you know what the fans want to hear or what questions they want answers to. But then he's saying, I'm not going to answer it, and don't even try to ask. That's I guess that's quite difficult to deal with then.
It is. And I think because of the relationship you forge with people, they've got to trust you. And I think that's part of the game as a journalist, is that you have your contacts. You get to a situation where they trust you, you trust them, and then you can have a conversation about anything. So, there are managers that I've got, a good relationship with, that I know full well that I can ask something that's going to make them feel uncomfortable, but they're not going to take it personally. They're not going to give me the impression that I'm out to get them, or give them the impression that I'm out to get them. It's a question of, I'm doing my job, deal with the question, and then we'll shake hands at the end, and it'll just be fine. It's all about contacts, this job. All about, any journalist in any field, it's all about contacts and having the trust of people. But it's also about making sure that you have the weapons in your armoury to drag them over the coals.
So who's your best contact in your phone right now?
Bob Geldof.
Bob Geldof?
Yeah.
Why are you making that up?
I did have his number for no apparent reason.
You don't know why you had it?
I don't know why I had it, but it was there. I think it was given to me once. About something to do with Live 8. Remember that? That was thing. Yeah. That was when I was working in Wales, and it's always been in there. I doubt the phone number works. We could try it.
Should we try it now? Actually, from a commentator's perspective, you've talked about the footballers who you've admired. What about commentators?
Yeah, commentators. So growing up, it was Alan Green and Mike Ingham and Peter Jones, who did all the Radio 2 commentaries, 5 live, Radio 5 live commentaries. Obviously, Graham Richards at a local level. Do you know what? Nowadays, I really like Conor McNamara, because he's so animated. The whole thing about football commentary in the radio and cricket commentary in the radio is that it's on in the corner of the room, the radio, and if the voice goes higher, something's happening, and you suddenly focus. Cricket's the same, football's the same. Conor McNamara does that. He gets excited, and even when it's not a goal or whatever, he's just plucked you out of daydreaming. It's off the cuff. Those commentators who are off the cuff, not trying to squeeze in a preconceived line here or there.
So you're not scripted when you do it?
No. So that night against Leeds, when Derby won in the playoffs, and I went on a bit of a ramble at the end, which went down.
Was that the hedge moment?
Yeah. It all March to the Arch. Yeah, okay. I'd thought about March to the Arch. That's good. I didn't write it down because I never expected Derby to go and win there. But the rest of it was totally off the top of my head because I felt so hyper, so overconfident, and so ridiculously overjoyed that we were going back to Wembley to commentate at Wembley.
Well, I mean, let's not forget, Truly Madly Derby came from one of your
Carlisle.
commentaries
Yeah.
when they went up end of last season.
Yeah. And it's just delivering big moments, being accurate in big moments.
Derby County obviously is a big reason why you like Derbyshire, but I need more than that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well,
so what else is it about Derbyshire that you love?
I just think that we have the most beautiful county, and I love the trails and the walks. I love the Monsell Trail, the bird song, and the way that the nature has taken back the permanent way as it was, and the tunnels, and how many people also love it too, and you know, it's a really good trail. The trails, we've got so many lovely trails, and the walks, and the greenery. You know, I took a walk to Wingfield Station. I was actually on my own that time one morning, and I stood on the wooden bridge next to it and just stood there for a bit, waiting for a train to come through, listen to the birds. Spring's my favourite time of year, so you know, it's like life is restarting, and we get a lot of that around here. So I mean, there's still so much I haven't explored, but I'm still waiting to buy a camper van. So
watch this space.
Well, you never know.
So how many years is it that you'll be carrying on being the Derby County commentator to match or break Graham Richards' record?
I've got a long way to go. I always said I'd try and continue and do it as long as I could until they took it off me, which could be any day soon. You know, you mentioned that Truly Madly Derby, but that was my first promotion as a commentator. I've been to Wembley twice and lost, which is awful, and still having to be professional. You know, there's so many emotional roller coasters that this job has thrown up, and then you still got to be professional. Like the day that Colin Bloomfield died, we were at Millwall, and he died at sort of overnight. We were told at midday, and then Sports Scene started at 2, and then Derby played Millwall, and you know, it's having that level of professionalism, but also having that emotion that adds to the gig. You know, because I think the emotion for me makes me what I am, and I think that's what people who are listening to the commentary think, that it matters to him, and that's why it matters to me. So, yeah.
Well, Ed Dawes, thank you for being the voice of Derbyshire.
Thank you.